Welcome to Conversations with Toy, a blogcast tackling life one episode at a time. This is the time to air out life's craziest moments. This space is all about speaking about life's hang-ups and ways in which we can leave better than when we started. Topics are all about ways we can find space to be better in life, love, mental space, and health.
Happy Friday. We are going to start this podcast by saying that because that's what we say every time we come together. And I know that we are all stressed out and we just going to dive right in because this has been a long week. And maybe this week was great for you because it may have been the best week. You may have had some very big success regardless of what's happening politically. And so let's say congratulations to you for having that great success and you're crushing your goals and you're making it happen. But then there may be some of you that feel like because of everything else that's going on, it only makes you feel that more drained with everything that you're already feeling. And now you feel even worse because you have this political cloud over your head. And now you're like not feeling your best. You may not feel as creative. You may be feeling like you're not making it. You're not feeling like you're making your mark. You feel like you just are just in a bubble and you just don't know how to pop that bubble and come out of it. And let me just tell you that it's very, 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 very real. And it's actually very, 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 very normal, especially with everything going on this week. And so unless you're living in a world, even if you didn't have good Wi-Fi, and you just somehow came out of this hut and you didn't know what was going on, you would know that we are still in limbo of knowing who the next president is. Right now, the votes are still being counted. And even as I record this, again, we do not have a direct answer about who will or who is the president. And it's causing a lot of stress, a lot of turmoil. It's causing a lot of fighting, whether online and offline. My biggest concern is that, when you hear these stories about saying that there's going to be this big war between white supremacy and basically everyone else, it's scary because, here I'm in Philadelphia and if this is your first time, let me just say hi to you. So, and thank you for coming. Thank you for tuning in because you could have listened to anything, but you're here and I'm so grateful. And so in Philadelphia, there has been a lot of, people want to say rioting, which has been very true. A lot of protests, which have been true. And so now I'm not desensitized to it in any type of manner, but it's already like high alert. I feel like I have not calmed down since the summer when unfortunately George Floyd was taken and killed. I feel like I'm more of a heightened situation because it's just been one thing after another. And so it has made me reconsider how I move and what we do. And especially because my biggest thought process is protecting my children. My husband and I has been on team. What can we do to protect our children? And so we have gone to the grocery store to make sure that we have enough food in the house in case we can't get out. We have done medicine runs. We have making sure the car stays gassed up. And again, this is not about fear. It's just about being smart because I have small kids. I have to be prepared. If anything should happen, I'm hoping that it's not. But if it do, we got to be prepared. And so that is the type of mental craziness that I feel like we are in right now. And in the midst of this, trying to sit up here and wait till we get to these 270 electoral votes. So people have asked, what have I been doing to get past that time? One is not being on social media as often. I have pre-populated a lot of the posts for this week, and I did that very intentionally. Like when I sit down and I think about the month or the week or the whatever the case may be, I literally sit and I look at what's happening, what's going on, what holidays are happening. And so I will sit there and pre-populate any type of social media post that I can, that's stories, that's the main anything. I just try to make sure that I have everything as much as pre-populated as I can, especially on days when I know where, you know what, you might need a break. So on the day of election, my husband and I had already did our mail-in ballot and secured, taken it to a secure drop-off spot. So we were done. However, we did make sure that we took off that day. Our kids had already had a couple of days off anyway prior to the election, and they were off the election day, so that worked out. And that day was one of the first days in a long time where I had off, and I did not have to think. I did not have to overdo anything. Just a chill day. Now, when I say chill day, chill within reason, because again, we still had the election and everything that was going on, and just trying to make sure we stay mindful of everything. But because I had pre-populated my posts on all my social media platforms, I actually enjoyed a day where I did my daughter's hair. I had some great lunch. I had a great dinner. I had a little bit of wine later that day, but I wasn't like, in my first thought, I wasn't drinking from like noon until 9 or anything weird. I literally had a very chill day. So that was good. And what I've been doing since everything has now happened, and now we're on this up and down teeter-totter where certain things are close and now we're not close, is I have been taking care of myself. I have been doing the things that I feel has brought me some joy, because again, my posts are populated. I haven't had the need to freshly do too many blogs, but what I will say is that I've been working on Thanksgiving and holiday content, and that has been giving me joy and peace and calm. I talked about this, I think, in season 1. Yeah, because I think it was towards the end of season 1 where we had this huge flood that flooded out our basement. So we're in the midst of getting that situated, and I want to say we're about 50% done. We have walls, they're painted, but we have so much more to do. New flooring that has to be put in. And so our Christmas decorations were downstairs in our basement because it just became a little bit of a storage area in certain parts of the basement. And because the whole basement got tore up, my focus has been Christmas. Getting a new Christmas tree, getting more decorations, making sure we have all enough stockings, make sure that I have wreaths and things like that. So I have been focusing on that, because Christmas really is, to me, it's not even really about gifts. It's really I just dive into creating so many memories for my family. My kids and I have certain traditions that even with us being socially distanced and being at home, we're still going to try to fulfill as much as possible. And so that's what I've been trying to keep myself focused. There was one post that I did post on my social media with Paula White. I think her name is now Paula White Kane. Back in the day when I was like 12, 13, I might even been like 8 or 9. We used to listen to Paula White when she was just Paula White. And again, she's like almost like a mega church in her own right, following. She's a Christian preacher, pastor, whatever her new titles are. But back in the day, like I said, she was considered like a preacher. She used to have different conferences, and she would go to different conferences and speak with different people. And one thing in particular about Paula White back then, I don't know much about her now. I would say that her vernacular, she used to always, or people would always assume, say that, she was trying to be too black. This whole being too black thing, she would teeter-totter between, cultural, black people culture, pretty much. And so as a pastor preacher, we used to listen to her all the time. And so I used to think she was okay. We used to follow her, listen to her. However, as I got older and became an adult, I just started leaning away from listening and dealing with too many mega church pastors. And I'm kind of still the same way. I have some that I'm like, okay, yeah, it's cool, but I'm just not really into the whole following of that. And I grew up in a church my whole life. My parents are both pastors, and my mom was the choir director. My mom and dad used to be our childhood pastors, right hand man and woman. So they, I was like in church pretty much 7 days a week. So I can spot in my mind, in how I felt like I've lived, I can definitely spot when I hear something that sounds off and crazy. So I had posted about Paula White Kane and about how or if she's just sounding with this prayer that she did. She is Trump's spiritual advisor, and so she's praying, talking about the African angels, and I'm like, girl, stop it right now, because it just was just, let me just, this is, and if you want to take a 5-second break, mental break from this, let me just tap into some of my PKs that can understand this. First of all, you are tryptophan and creating atmosphere that doesn't exist. The mumbling and fumbling that she was doing, even for folks that know that when you speak in tongues, nobody should be able to even understand you anyway. But for you to be doing the most, I'm just like tapped out. And I feel like, game recognizes game, real recognizes real. And I'm just sitting here looking at her like, I need you to get your life together, and I need you to knock some of this shenanigans completely off. Because like I know that you were just pretty much making it up as you go. And I've been finding a lot of the childhood people that I used to listen to are doing the same thing. Like, when did y'all start just faking it? Like, you had a whole following. You didn't have to do all that. So I don't understand where all this extraness is coming from. But that is the one post that resonated with me. And reality is, because I don't listen to them anymore, the only way I even knew that there was even an issue going on was because it done made itself on the social media. And you know how social media is. Once it's there, it's there. Ain't no taking it back. Ain't no rewinding it. It's on there. It's that's it. So I don't know what's going on with Paula don't let me call this child Paula Patton. Paula White Kane. But I had already started dwelling from her from when I started turning like maybe 2021. Because like I said, my now issue with some of these mega church pastors, that they be just doing the most. And as long as they do a couple of, community outreaches, they feel like they can just say, do, and they're untouchable. And it's just, let me tell you, some of the scandals that have come out in these last couple of weeks and months have come from some of these big pastors. So I would just be very careful. And I'm always like that now. Like, be careful who you follow. Like, be careful who you resonate with. So that's just my little 5 seconds. But outside of that, nope. Families have been torn apart with these elections. Some people are disowning their family members for voting one way or the other. And it literally is one way or the other. It's not a Trump only. It's not a Biden only. It's on both sides. So I've seen a lot of family members that have decided to just wash their hands of each other. Friends who have been friends for 10, 20 plus years, and they're just like, no, we can't be friends. And I would imagine how disheartening it would have to be to think that you think you know a person and how they align, and then realize that they're like completely different, because these two situations are on like two different platforms, really two different wavelengths. So, finding joy, finding peace, finding mental clearance for me has been important. We have gone and taken the kids to the outside to ride their scooters and listen to them laugh, because we've had a couple of good days here as far as weather in Philadelphia. And those are types of things that I've been trying to focus on. Now, will that be enough? Depending on how all this goes, I can't even tell you. I can't say if that will be enough. What I will say is that if it gets more and more difficult, or if it becomes more and more stressed, my thought process will be to continue to dig deeper. Self-care is, like I said, it's not something that you just do on Sundays. It's more than just putting a mask over your face. It's more than just a bubble bath or going to hang out with your friends. Self-care is literally finding out what it is moment by moment that you may need. And there's sometimes when quiet is what I need, and sometimes when I may need to work out. And there may be things that I have to do to just make sure that I'm sound and I feel good about myself and the things around me. Whatever that list may look like from day to day and moment to moment, that's what I'm going to do. And especially if it's not hurting anybody, it's not creating any, it's not stopping the world peace or anything like that, then that's what it's going to be. So that's where I'm at. And like I said, because there's been so much stories about this whole warish insurgence that may happen, I'm really just focused on what can I do to protect me and mine? How can I be there to help somebody else? And what can I do to protect me and my family? Because that's what it's going to end up boiling down to, should any of these things be true or real. And again, I don't like to live in a moment of fear, but I also am not stupid. I'm not going to just be like, oh, well, it's not going to happen, and just keep myself out there. Like, no, we got to be prepared. So that's why we try to do as much as we can in case we need to move at a moment's notice, that we can do so and do so safely. These elections, again, I'm just praying for them to get done, to get over with, and for us to get a leader in place so that we can try to figure out what this means and try to figure out if there's a possibility to even heal the country, because everything is so split. So that's the thought process. That's where my mindset is. That's where my heart is at, figuring out how can we move forward. What is moving forward even look like? What's that going to look like? So all I can say is stay tuned to see what happens. We're all watching, we're all waiting, we're all in great anticipation. And so we'll get there at some point. We'll get there. But I would expect and consider that this is going to be between the next couple of days, maybe even a week, and then definitely it's going to be in the next coming weeks if it becomes contested on either side. So that is how that's going to shake down. I have been getting ready for the holidays because we are in November, and this is we only have one more month before 2020 is over, and I have never been in my soul so happy to see a year just leave. Now, let me just say I've had an amazing year. And I don't take that joy lightly, because there's so many people who have not experienced that joy. But I can't sit there and say that I have had such a horrible year. I've had so many highs and some lows, but those highs have been so rewarding and so joyful. So I have been trying to extend that joy by thinking about the holidays, thinking about Thanksgiving, because I'm vegan, trying to figure out what my menu is going to look like specifically for me, because I'm the only one in this house that's vegan. And then trying to figure out the menu for everybody else. And everybody's been, my kids and family member, and when I say family members, I'm just me, like the people in my house, they're giving me like their list of, I want you to make some macaroni and cheese. That's a given. I want you to make some cabbage. Okay. I want you to make this. I want you to make that. So that is what I'm trying to focus on, is getting the menu down plate, because then I can shop according to the menu. And because I'm not a last minute shopper, I'm going to start very soon, because I don't like to not have the things that I need. And then thinking about Christmas, we had a flood, and so we had to replace a lot of our Christmas decorations. So that gave me an excuse to hit my favorite spot, Target. And, one day I'm going to try to pray that I can get them to sponsor this podcast. But let me tell you, me and Club Target go way back. So I've actually been proud of myself. I did not have that many Target packages that came this week. However, and I preface that because probably by tomorrow, those packages will start rolling in. So it's just really just trying to get ready for the holidays, making sure I have everything that I need so that when I'm ready to decorate my house, that I can be full blown in my most giddiest of turning up all the Christmas music up possible and letting the Christmas spirit fly. I have already been starting to listen to Christmas music on a personal basis, because not everybody in my house is so excited to that Christmas music is here. And mostly my husband, because he just wants to get, hey, let's get through Thanksgiving, then jump into the Christmas spirit. And me, I'm like, no, when November 1st hits, Christmas is pretty much here. As soon as we eat that candy, that next day, I'm like, where's the Christmas music at? But for me, I will say that I am still listening to Christmas music on the low by myself, because for me, Christmas music all the way until, even after the new year, is self-care for me. I look forward to it. I enjoy it. And so, yeah, me and my little magical elf, I have a cutout of Buddy the Elf in my room that stands pretty tall. He's about as tall as my husband, and he's 6'3" or 6'2". Child, don't give me the line. And he stands in our room, and I say our room, but he's next to me in my room, and I feel that strongly about Buddy the Elf. So I'm looking forward to Christmas, and that's what I've been focusing on. What am I going to do for certain cookies that I'm going to bake this season? What am I going to do when these kids start giving me their Christmas list? Those are the types of things that I'm focusing on, because that brings me happiness and joy. So outside of the elections, outside of Christmas, outside of preparing for Thanksgiving, let me just say one thing about Thanksgiving. This is not the time of year for y'all who don't know how to cook to start. If you're not already have a signature dish, you need to either start practicing almost every single day to perfect a signature dish, but please do not. If you're going to go visit family members because of COVID, I don't know how doable that may look like. Parts of Europe has already been shut down. Some states here in the United States have already started the process of shutting down or will be in the process of shutting down soon. So I don't know what Thanksgiving is going to look like. There may be a lot of more Zoom or FaceTiming of family members that you can't see. Which reminds me, I just remember from my own self, I got my grandmother all squared away with the app Google Duo. So I need to actually log into it so I can actually physically see her. And so that's how Thanksgiving and the holidays may look like. And that's got to be hard. I know that's hard for me to even think about. Like if I can't see my parents, or if I can't see my family, or if I can't leave to go visit my uncle and for Thanksgiving, like how hard that's going to be. But COVID has not disappeared, people. I don't care what people are telling you. If the numbers are tripling like they are, we're at 100 and something thousand cases a day or something, I believe. That's a lot of numbers in a day. And I'm just praying that everybody can still remember that and try to do what they can to stay safe, because I'm not trying to lose people in the next season. I want people to come into that next season together, collectively whole and sound. So keep in mind, you need to still continue washing your hands. I have been stockpiling again and again because I'm more about being prepared. And I just wanted to preface this too. I have a system how I do things around our house. So about September, October, I am very particular about making sure we have every type of everything we need stacked into the closets and our cabinets and things. Because in the wintertime, I just imagine like there could be times where we can't get out. And it's not the time to be sitting on the toilet talking about you ain't got no toilet paper. You know what I'm saying? You're in the shower to go wash and you're like, oh wait, I don't have no body wash. Oh, I go to wash my face. I don't have my particular soap for my face or cleanser for my face. So I have already done that to make sure that we had all of those things stacked up. I do that all year round, but in the winter, I'm very particular making sure that we have multiples of things just in case we can't get out. So this is no different, like at all. Now that we have COVID, I'm like, what if we get locked down again? I don't want to have to fight anybody at the grocery store for a can of such and such and such. So anything that's like non-perishable, we have been making sure that we have, extra cans or extra things, and just trying to be prepared, because again, no one knows what tomorrow is going to bring. But I've always been the type of person who's always been about making sure you try to be as successful as you can. And thinking ahead is one of the ways that you can kind of troubleshoot. You can't fix everything, but the things you can troubleshoot, that is how I get around that. And that's being prepared. So that's what I've been doing. What have you been doing to get yourself ready for the holidays? Have you even tapped into it? I know some people who kind of wait until like the week before and they're like, oh, I guess I should turn the holiday spirit on. And that's what they do. And to me, each their own. I don't try to judge or make other people come to my level, nor do I have or try to aspire for it to come to other people's levels as well. So it'd be very interesting to see what you're doing and be mindful of the things that you're doing. I was talking to a group of my friends and we were talking about how, like, surprisingly, we have not been drinking as much as we probably thought in our minds that we would be doing. I know for me, I kind of honestly thought, to be honest with you, I felt like I was just going to have sobering moments where I wasn't drinking something because the way that everything was going, that I would just be drinking. I probably have had 3 cups of wine total, not in one day, not in one sitting, not at one TV show, literally 3 cups of wine in the last couple of days. And I don't know how that happened. I mean, I'm telling you, I had a game plan that I was going to be drinking, especially like on election day. I was like, okay, I'm going to get to noon because I want to be classy. I'm going to get to noon and I'm going to do me. And then I'm going to make sure I'm good so that I can make sure I still, take care of my family. But reality was I ain't doing none of that. Not one bit. Like I said, I've had 3 glasses of wine in the last couple of days. And I'm like, this is great. I think I've averaged out like maybe, and I haven't even had 1 glass of wine a day. I think the night of elections, I don't even know if I even had a glass. Maybe I did. But whatever the case may be, I'm actually proud of myself. I'm super proud of myself because I'm telling you right now, I had a plan, and that plan was to be drinking. So the fact that I'm not, and I haven't, and I'm not going to, this is a great thing. So please practice your self-care. Practice your self-care because it's important. But see, with us living in Philadelphia, though, I do want to talk about this. So because everybody is demanding that all the votes should, be counted, and honestly, they should really be counted, regardless of what side you believe in. Reality of it is you would want to know where you stood, and reality is you should allow everybody's voice to be heard. But can I just say to Philadelphia, y'all are the GOAT, because Philadelphians, we have half of them that are, and I say half, I don't mean the number half, but just by the crowds here in Philly that are protesting where the votes are actually being counted. You can see half of the folks that are out there with their signs. They're like, hell to the no, let's get this to stop. And then the other half is like literally tootsie rolling and doing the electric slide in the street. Like there's like a DJ that came out of the middle of nowhere. This is just like a regular run in the mill, we having a block party type of vibe. And listen, when I tell you that my very first experience when I met my husband, that I'm not from Philadelphia and I was in Lancaster, and we're a little town, and I came in and I'm moving to this big city, and I'm a city girl now. I had never even experienced a block party like Philadelphia does. Don't nobody throw a better block party than Philadelphia. You can't convince me. And so when I was seeing the videos that were popping up all over social media, I was like, this is very Philadelphian to right now to just have a DJ that just sets up in the middle of nowhere, to block off a certain amount of space, to be in the street dancing. I mean, literally when I say people are tootsie rolling, like I used to say that, and sometimes I do say that in my personal life, like as a joke, but for real, people are literally tootsie rolling in the streets, doing the electric slide in the streets. It's so Philly. And so I'm so here for it. I keep saying this will be my 10th year in Philly this February, and it's just amazing to me. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less from Philly. I would not expect anything less. So if you've been watching any social media and you see Philly and they're doing their thing and everybody's dancing, let them people do them. Let them people dance. Because I tell you right now, that's just what Philly does. There's no getting around that. That is what Philly does. And with all the highs and lows that we've had the last few weeks with just the protests and different social interactions that have taken place, I wouldn't expect anything less. So there's been talk about possibly, what will happen if the United States gets shut down again. There's so many different ways that could go that I'm not sure how that's going to go. Like if we get shut down again, just like some of the European countries that are being shut down now, because we seem to always be so late behind, and we already know why. That's going to be hard because we're really in the final stretch of the end of the year. We're in the holiday mode. And my biggest thing is with family. People may not be able to socialize. Back in the day, and I say back in the day, this was like last year. When holidays came around, the biggest thing you had to worry about was running into your uncle or your aunt that got on your last nerves, or having grandma ask you when you're going to get married again, or when you're going to have a kid, or you pregnant again. Those were the types of stories that people were prepared for. Like even with my blog, and which we'll talk about today, because I celebrate 6 years this month of being a blogger. I just want to share you my experience, because I think I want to talk about that today, because we get so delusional about how we need to move in certain spaces. So this is my 6th year. And I remember when I first started out, it was really blogging around the holidays, because again, this was this month, and trying to give people like advice about how to deal with family members that may be doing the most, how to deal with certain, aspects of the holiday giving time, whether that be certain gifts, what was the limit to give a certain gift if you just met somebody. And so that is how I started off the blog. And again, the premise of everything was really just built upon self-care for me, that I was coming off of postpartum after having my son. My son was born, and just dealing with just how everything was just matriculating, just getting through it all. So I want to talk about this whole not comparing yourself to other people when you're walking in your gift, because I always believe that your gift will make room for you. And I feel like with blogging, it's really natural for me because I love and I really and naturally enjoy writing. I can recap like nobody's business. If I'm at an event, I really could put it all together. I just feel like those are really strong suits for me when it comes to blogging, because that obviously with a blog, you have to have a website and you have to be able to write. So that is how that's been going. Can I just say though, in the last I want to say year, maybe a year and a couple months, I've really taken off as far as and mixing the influencing part of blogging together and then making a profit off of it. Let me just say, because I was always doing that for like maybe the last maybe 3 years, but doing it and then making a profit off of it and learning how to manage that and turning the blog into a business, taking advice from people who are already seasoned. But also in the same concept, not comparing, because it's very hard not to. And I had to kind of put like my little stunner glasses on, because I didn't need to look at what somebody else is doing. And the beautiful part is that I'm learning more and more in this last couple of months. Instead of me saying I only have under 2,500 followers, would I love to have more followers? Absolutely. Absolutely. And when I say under 2,500 followers, I mean like on one social media platform. I have about a little over 2,500 on Twitter and a little under 2,500 on Instagram. But there's a whole number game. But I have learned that when you are sincere, when you work hard, you can get deals, you can move in spaces that your numbers don't always show, because you may have a bigger following with the blog. Like my blog in itself has over 35,000 follower hits a month. So I have over 35,000 people reading the blog each month, which would then correlate a lot stronger than having 35,000 people that follow me on social media. Because sometimes when you look at some of the bigger bloggers too, and I've learned this, they may have a bigger number set. Some people pay for their followers. I do not. Some people have these big followings, but they don't have a lot of interactions with their followers. They don't have a lot of back and forth with their followers. They don't communicate, back and forth. And so their rates look differently. And I used to be so caught up, like, oh my gosh, I have to have this certain number before I could even pitch to a company. And I realized that was the wrong way, really the wrong way to handle it. I'm learning to pitch because, first of all, I'm dope. And being a dope person and dope individual, I can pitch because I have great content. I blog at least 3 or 4 days a week. The numbers are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And reality is that I've actually surpassed my numbers these last couple of months, and I'm grateful. And so just learning how to get around and learning how to pitch, how to put myself out there has been a very interesting ride. So the fact that I'm here now at 6 years and doing things that I have never done before and getting in front of other people that I have never done or never gotten, I guess, in front of before has been a very interesting walk. And in these 6 years, I've learned how that having support has truly mattered, and learning to be grateful for what I have versus comparing what I don't have or comparing myself to what somebody else may have. It's just learning how to be grateful and walk in that gratefulness. And I know that this is the time of year, again, when we think about Thanksgiving, when you think about Christmas, you think about holidays, you think about coming together. A lot of people are not going to be able to do that this year. There are some people who are not going to be at that Christmas dinner or that Thanksgiving dinner because we can't either get together or they've already transitioned or whatever the case may be. And I'm just trying to be grateful and walk in that every single day. And not just because it's the thankfulness season, but because that is really how we should really focus ourselves every single day. Like my portion and what I have is a blessing. As much as my kids get on my nerves, there's a woman somewhere who wanted to have children who could not. And as much as my husband and I get into our little rifts every now and again, there's somebody who's lonely at a holiday or lonely every single day who would want the portion that I have. So I'm trying to keep that in the back of my mind. And when I want to complain, which can be very often if I don't check myself, I want to say to myself, like, listen, do you not see what you have around you? Like, I looked in my closet the other day. This was like 2 days ago. And I looked in my closet and I said, look at this closet. Like, all of your needs are met. Like, your basic needs are met. You have what you need. You have more than what you need. And you have some of your wants. Like, keeping yourself knowing that you're blessed is something that you should think about every single day. When I looked into the closet and I see that we're stored up for the winter and we have everything that we need. If we can't get to the store, we have the basics. That's a blessing, because there's somebody that may not even have that may have lost their job, that may not have money, who can't pay their bills. But I'm also grateful because I remember plenty of times that we've struggled, plenty of times. I've struggled as an individual, as a single woman before, and I am grateful that those struggles that I've had before, the struggles that I've had as, my husband and I as a couple or as a family, like being able to see the growth that we've had from then till now is a blessing. So I just want you to be more mindful of your thought process and be more grateful and do whatever you can to help other people, because we are supposed to help each other. But that's what we have to focus on. So now that we're in year 6 of the blog and we're learning lessons every single day, I always think about, and I'm going to be writing I always do a blog yearly message about what it is that I've learned and the things that I want to see in the future. And all I can say is that I have learned a lot about patience in this process. Like when I first started blogging, I didn't have a laptop. I literally had my smartphone and I would blog from there. Then as I matured, I was looking at my computer and I was looking at the emails from when I very first signed up for my laptop, or my husband bought this laptop for me. This was back in 2016. So this was in December of 2016 that I've had this laptop. That's almost 4 years. And now I'm like, okay, I have equipment now. I have the laptop. I have, backup chargers. I have lights in the house. I have portable lights when I'm going out. I have all kinds of stuff. Now I have podcast equipment. Like, I have come from a long, long way of just having just this phone and whatever internet I had on the phone. That was it. That's all I had. And so now it's like, okay, I have the bag full of this. I have a bag full of that, Amazon dropping off stuff, remotes for my phone so that I can record and do campaigns. That's not how my life was 6 years ago. My life was about, like I said, being in therapy and my therapist saying you need to find an outlet, something that you can find that's creative, find that outlet and then go with it. This was the outlet, the blog. I never even imagined at that time, 6 years ago, that I would even be podcasting. That was never a part of the plan, but here I am now, podcasting. And I'm like, sometimes when I listen to the podcast, because I listen just like you guys do, but you should be listening to it on Good Pod. So that's just a little 5-second plug, because I am a Good Pod influencer. But yeah, I listen to that and I'm listening to the podcast. I'm like, wow, that's me. That's my voice. That's what we're doing. And I'm very proud of that. Because let me tell you, my life 6 years ago was a whole mess. A mess. But it's through those times when you look back and you're like, I didn't have this, you didn't have that. You learn to acquire things. Can I say that I have to say there's been some bloggers, and again, when we talked about this whole comparison thing, that have the numbers, that have the reach, that have it going on as I would like to think. But you know what has been amazing is that some of those very same people had no problem when I asked them certain questions of like taking the time to talk to me to say, hey, go get this. You'll need this. You'll need that. So shout out to those bloggers, to those influencers who don't feel it like petty to give somebody good sound advice, because there's a lot of people who would not want to give you that advice, or they will tell you, here's my link. This is what you need to do. Read this link so that they can get, paid from it, or whatever the case may be. And I'm not knocking that, because listen, everything, you can start classes, you can give all those things out, and I'm not against that. But when you have somebody that's in the same field and they're like, listen, this helped me, and they don't mind giving that information, shout out to y'all, because I'm going to be doing the same for somebody else. Somebody asked me a question about how it is to, matriculate from one place to another. I don't have a problem telling them, because somebody else gave me that same information. I wouldn't even be here if I had not gotten the information and then also listened and applied that information. That was a word from somebody, because, you can hear something, you can be given something, but if you don't apply it, you're going to be stuck in the same position you were at. But yeah, other bloggers, other influencers was like, here, this is what you need. Change this and change that. And then as of recently, I'm making some more changes to the website. So if you are going to the blog, continue to do so. I'm not going to take the blog down while I make these changes. But yeah, just simple changes to make it a little bit more streamlined. And as you grow, you know better about how you should have certain things on your site, how you want things to be. But those are the types of things that I've been learning in these 6 years. And I'm thinking like 6 years. The first year I was so excited. Like I was just like, I just want to write. So I just wrote. But I was like writing. I think I wrote like one article every 2 weeks, or once a week. Oh, I'll write, it was like a hobby. So I was like, oh, I'll get to it. I don't have time. I'll just get back to it. And then you start off the blog. I'm sorry, I haven't been in, for a while. I've been missing a couple of weeks, blah, 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 blah. And now it's like, I have to pre-populate stuff a month in advance. I have to get, season stuff and content a month in advance, and months and stuff together. So totally different change. But I'm grateful for it. So 6 years, Toy Time Blog. We're going to have a couple of things that we're going to be giving away, because I've been aligning with some amazing companies, and we're going to help celebrate those 6 years. I like to do, like a lot of the times when I do giveaways, it has to be on things that I either use. Most of the time it's on things, let me just keep it real, 99.9 to 100% of the time it's stuff that I've already used on a consistent basis, or it's one of my favorite things. This year we're going to be doing some subscription boxes for some self-care products with Fortunately Inspired, which I've done a blog with them. I did a video with it as an unboxing, so look forward to that. One of the ways for you to get involved with the giveaways is, one, to be following the blog, and to also follow me on social media. So if you're on Instagram, make sure you go to Toy Time Blog, STOITIME blog, and follow, because as we're going to give out the ways to, and you can win it. And not just that, those subscription boxes, but just any of the prizes. We're going to be doing it that way. It just makes it a lot easier to do it that way. And I look forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun just to celebrate. We need something that we could be celebrating right now, because right now life is just a little bit on standby with these elections. I've been seeing people have these memes about whether or not you can be friends with somebody, if they basically didn't vote for your candidate of choice. And people have had some very interesting debates. I've actually had friends that I've known forever and a day, like go back and forth with each other. And I'm just like, let me just stay out here. That's not my fight. I know where I stand. I know where I stand with people on that. And as far as like where I believe and, whom I'm aligning with. And I don't know. I just don't have the energy to debate people back and forth. My friends list has gotten smaller. And it is what it is. I think that at the end of the day, we should really know who we're aligning with anyway. And so that's very, very true. I think a lot of people are really showing their true colors anyway. And so when people show you who you are, like Maya Angelou has always told us, we have to believe them. I'm not willing to act as if things are not the way that they are. I'm not going to sit there and go back and forth with people. It's just not my style. And that's where we are. That is where we are. The elections is kind of what we've been focusing on this week. And I think in the next couple of weeks, we will still continue to focus on it because Trump has already stated that because he is not going to give up. He is going to take it to the Supreme Court if he should. That means that this is going to be the next couple of weeks is going to be very interesting. So for all those who think that we're just going to get this announcement, that we're just going to go on with our lives, that is not how politics works. It's not going to work this way in any type of fashion. There is going to be a couple of weeks of drama and back and forth until we begin to turn over power. One thing I will say is that you need to be vigilant and be very watchful for how that turn of power should happen. Because it's going to be very detrimental for how you move and how you do life. Really, that's really it's going to boil down to. Like I said, I'm a poli-sci major. I'm trying to just study the trends and just see how everything boils out. But that's what's going to happen. Self-care is going to be very important for you again, and to me and all of us, because with the holidays coming up, this is one of the most depressed moments and times of the year. And because we have suffered so much loss in the world, people have lost lives, their jobs, there's so many things that's on the line. People say that, oh, self-care, that's such a cute little concept, but it's not even just about bubble baths or one or two activities. It's literally having the ability to know what you need at any moment. For instance, today, my kids needed to talk to their, counselor, and normally I would just pull it up on their computer. For whatever reason, I could not get that to pull up at all. So for me, immediately for self-care was me putting them on my cell phone. So I didn't like the feeling of me having to keep rummaging trying to figure this out. And so I was like, I'm not even going to do this to myself. I'm not going to torture myself. Let me give them my phone. I have plenty to do on this laptop. So I pulled out my laptop. I think they were on their phone for like an hour. And it allowed me to get certain things done that I actually already needed to get done. But my self-care at that moment was knowing that for me to continue to look for whatever it is I was needed to look for, it was only going to cause me more stress. My husband made a comment to me, or a question to me, or a thought process to me the other day. We have something that we're working on, and he was just like, part of this new phase that we may be walking in is that it's going to come down to what you can handle. And if you're not able to handle that, it's going to change our dynamics between him and I, and between our family. So it immediately made me think about, wow, that's really the reality. But even bigger than that, it's the reality of just our lives in general. And so today that made me think about my choices, my decisions. It made me think about my responses to certain situations, especially like with the whole homeschooling and being at home, because it's a frustrating situation right now with the whole homeschooling portion of it, even though they're connected to their teacher, to always be making sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. And it's frustrating because if I have my own set of things that I'm trying to get done and then they need to do what they're doing, it's the whole stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. So today I was that comment that he made was very, very, it's not damaging. It's not the word that I was looking for, but I will say it was more like a showstopper. Like, let me get myself all the way together. So I think a large part of it too, for me, is that for me in my particular situation, when my husband, I feel like he's around, I don't always have to think. I can kind of like let my guard down because he is there. Like that's what a whole, husband's supposed to be. He's a covering. He's covering me when I can't cover myself or when I don't want to cover myself. But I find that sometimes I've let my guard down so much that I'm not as on point with certain things because I don't have to think. Because he's always been the type that's always been the type of person that just covered me. And so now it's like, you know what? Yes, he's covering you. However, there's still a part of you that still has to be sharp, that still has to be keen, that still has to like kind of think about what it is that's going on. And so now it's like, okay, let me get my mind thought process together so that I can do my part in this situation too, and making sure that I'm supposed to be doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing. And so that's just how I'm trying to get my mindset to not be so laid back just because he's here or he's around or because there's a point, like at any point in given time, that things could change. And now I need to make that decision to make sure that I'm always there so I can cover my children and that I can cover myself. Because that's just like a bad habit. I've been like that since like college when we met. If we're somewhere at a party and we were together, it was like, oh, I didn't have to worry about it. Like I knew I would be okay, instead of being like, let me look and then he be the second backup to what's going on with me. And so that's the goal. That is the goal, to just make sure I just go back to that point of being fully aware. And when I was talking about that, it was like with the whole self-care part is like me having to switch and give the kids the phone, because that made the difference of making sure that I wasn't upset or frazzled. It was okay to do that. And I'm trying to ask myself at given moments when the stress level is as high as it is, what do I need at that moment that will make a difference? And that difference may mean peace for myself. That difference may mean quiet for somebody else. Because the reality of it is that if I don't watch my responses, I frazzle everybody else around me. Like with my kids are already like me. Like if they get frazzled, they're frazzled. So I'm like, okay, let me be more aware of my responses. Let me make sure that I'm giving them a certain response, because I was thinking about it with my son. Like if I frazzle him, I get mad because he's basically a reflection of myself. So then if I'm not gathering my thoughts together and making sure that when I even present something to him, that I'm presenting it in a way that makes sound and makes sense, it's going to get a better response from him. And then therefore there's not this big clash. So that's what I've been, thinking about, like how I interact with everybody else. Because, we're all an interlocking puzzle when you're in a household full of people, especially women, because like Beyonce said, women keep the tempo. We do keep the tempo of our homes. So if my beat is always off, if my attitude is always off, if my demeanor is always off, it's very off-putting to my spouse, it's off-putting to my husband. I mean, my husband, spouse is the same thing, but to the kids. And so then the whole beat of the house is off. And I grew up in a house where that was the case. Like if my mom was off, everybody was off. And so with that being the case, the struggle to like maintain the flow and the beat of the house becomes that much harder. So I'm trying to say to myself, your beat is off. So either you hold that and you work through that quietly within yourself. And if you need help, that's fine. But if not, then fix it. Like you have to fix it. You have to either, and what I mean by fixing, I don't mean fixing other people, like fixing myself. My responses. Why is my response looking like that? Why is it sounding like that? Why am I acting like that? None of those things are going to be beneficial to myself or anybody around me. But it's still taking time to get to that point where this becomes a natural flow. There are some days when it's better and there's some days when it's not. And that's just an honest to goodness truth. So I'm trying to do better at that. I feel like because this last year has been triggering, and I won't get into the reason why right now. I'll come back and talk about that maybe months down the line, but not allowing the trigger that I'm constantly in right now, the trigger that I've been in for the last year, probably a year and a half, but at least the last year, to knock me off of the work that I've been doing. So reaching out and outsourcing some help. And that may not necessarily just mean therapist, but just, talking to someone that can relate. Working out certain situations that I have inside of me. Like I've been writing in my journal again, and I've been seeing certain little patterns and being very clear about those triggers and those patterns when you see them, so that I can kind of troubleshoot. That has been the goal. And so that's why when this week has happened the way it's happened, I've been digging deeper into what it is that I need. Because you're going to need to do the same thing. Because if the holidays come around and you're able to go and you are able to go hang out with your family, you're still going to be dealing with your mom or your grandparent or aunt or somebody that's going to be asking you 1,001 questions that you may not want to answer. you're going to be dealing with family structures that may not always be beneficial. Like I wrote a blog a couple years ago and I had updated it this week when I was talking about, somebody asked me advice about what do you do when you have to go to these family functions, but you have so much drama that's going on with the family? Is it better to go to the family drama and deal with it, or is it better to not go? My answer is it's better to sometimes not go. Like if you have the ability to remove yourself from a situation that you're already aware of is not going to serve you, why put yourself in torture mode? I'd rather for my family members to be mad at me than for me to push myself into something that could trigger me all the way to the left. Like I'm not going to willingly walk into the lion's den and then say, man, I'm so mad why these lions are here. Like that's basically what you're doing. So it may be best for you to remove yourself from a situation and have the people be mad at you, but you be taken care of and you be sound and your emotions are together, than to just continue walking into something just to please other people. And that's where this whole pleasing people, this people pleasing situation comes into play. You're so caught up in making sure everybody else thinks the world of you when you don't even look at yourself in the mirror and think the world of yourself. Like used to be like that. I was so concerned about making everybody else happy, but I was miserable. And I don't understand how we allow that flip to stay that way, but you better flip that switch real quick, because life is way too short. When I think about like almost being 40, and I'm like, all them years I could have been together in all aspects of life. But I gave everybody else the power to make the decisions for me because it was easier than just saying that I wasn't happy about whatever it is that was going on. I can't even afford to give that much power. When you start to get 40, you like, look, you only got this next half of life. You ain't got time to be playing with these people. So if you have this situation where you're trying to figure out what makes more sense, if it's going to please other people and make you miserable, the answer is always better yourself. Always secure yourself first. No different than being on a plane and the oxygen goes down. You got to put the mask over yourself first. So stop securing everybody else and secure yourself. Because as the holidays come around and you have to go around so-and-so that literally will draw all kinds of anger out of you, why even put yourself through that torture? Or giving gifts to people. I actually had a situation a couple weeks ago. You give a gift to somebody and their response was mad rude. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're giving me a rude response after a gift that I gave to you? And you know what I said to myself? That's what I get for giving somebody something that you knew was going to be from somebody who was either ungrateful or mad rude. I don't even let my kids be rude to people that give them stuff. So when it becomes from an adult doing the same, just write yourself a mental note. Don't do that no more. Don't give them a gift. Stop giving them. They're good. So as we matriculate this week, who knows who our next president will be? Only time will tell. Please practice self-care. Take care of yourself. Stop yourself when you know you need to change the tempo. Don't have the tempo of your house be so disrupted all the time. Fix it. Fix it quickly. Do better. And make sure that as we matriculate into the holidays, if we're able to visit family members, because I'm probably, well, it ain't even probably, we already said we weren't. We talked about that a couple of episodes before. We're going to be right here safely at home. Not stuck at home, but safely at home. But for those who are deciding to go out with family members and friends and continue this ebony flow of like the holidays and dinners and parties and whatever it is that you're going to do, be sure that whatever you're doing is a decision that you're making because you truly want to do that and not because you're trying to please people. Because pleasing people will never get you far. Also, make sure that you're following me on the blog at toytime.org. Follow me on all social medias as Toytime Blog. And we will be back next week. And hopefully, maybe next week we'll know who our president is. We'll talk about that too. So take care of yourself. Do what you have to do for yourself. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you as always for joining me. And I know that even in the deepest or joyful conversations, that there's something we can learn and apply. Until next time, I hope that you are doing better. If not, we will be back to talk some more and handle it. Peace to you and yours. Stay grounded.